we already have inside of a remote repository currently 4 branches. The 3 main ones, dev, test, and master, and one new one that contains a new feature, feature 1. This feature 1 branch has a new commit. A commit in which we changed how the button inside of our login page is being displayed. It is now within a stack layout. And I even left a background color in there. That one was not important, but the thing is that there is one commit that is not yet on our main branches. And I explain how that is exactly the process that you should follow. You create one feature branch, you add all of the commits required in that branch to have that feature ready, and eventually you want to merge through pull requests, that's why it is going to happen through GitHub, to one of the main branches. In our case, at least at first, the dev branch. But so far we don't have any CI in place. That is exactly what we will begin to set up in this lecture. I am going to navigate over to App Center, and in here is where I want to connect to that remote repository that I already have in GitHub. And I will begin with the Android application. If I then navigate over to the Android application here in App Center, I already know that there is a Build tab. We have so far only been working with the Diagnostics and Analytics tab, but you may have already noticed this one. It is in here where we are going to set up continuous integration. So go ahead and navigate over to the Build tab. And in here you will have to connect to a repository. And we know that we already have the repository on GitHub. You of course have another couple of options. We have been working with GitHub, so this is the one that we're going to be selecting. And what you will do is first, of course, connect to your GitHub account. You may be prompted to sign in. In my case, I already have this GitHub right here. And notice that it is already listing all of my repositories. So all I have to do is come here to search repos and search for my CI/CD sam_redbug repository. You should do something similar. As soon as I select this one, App Center is going to go ahead and identify all of the branches that exist within my repository. All of them. Notice that it has all of the information right here. And here is where you want to start to configure all of those builds. When we get to the continuous delivery section, we're going to be talking about a little bit more about this, but essentially you want all of these branches to distribute to different places. That is one of the reasons why we have these 3 different branches. What you can do, for example, is make the dev branch distribute to other developers. That can help you check if everything is working correctly. The test branch may be able to distribute to your testers, either internal on your organization or even external if you perhaps have some beta testers. And eventually master can be distributed to the stores. Feature 1, of course, is actually a branch that we will eventually delete because it will be merged to dev, so it is not important right now and you wouldn't set any continuous integration for this one. But for the other 3, you definitely want some continuous integration. Right now, I am only going to be setting the continuous integration for the dev branch. And all I have to do is either select the branch and come here to configure build, and this window is going to appear, or from the list of branches, simply click on this small settings icon or this button over here to the right, and we're going to see the exact same window appear. Here is where we want to start to configure how this build is going to happen. And each of the branches is going to have a different build configuration. For example, the master branch that is going to be building for the store will have a configuration of release, probably, not a debug configuration. But the dev branch is okay if it continues to have a debug configuration. We can change the SDK version. And you can see how the App Center has a ton of SDK versions for Android listed in here. We can select the latest stable version of Android 9.2 or one of the previous ones. In my case, I'm actually going to be selecting the latest version, but feel free to select any other one that you want, perhaps the one that you have selected on Visual Studio. Just select one of the SDK versions in here. We are not yet going to be exploring build scripts, so it's okay to leave this none. What I want to show you in here is this section in here. This is probably the most important one in here, because this is the one that actually enables continuous integration. If you select to build this branch on every push, this option right here is the one that enables continuous integration, to build on every push. And that is exactly the subtitle of the first lecture in this section, that continuous integration is to build automatically on every commit. That is exactly what we can set in here, to build the dev branch on every push. And this would essentially mean that if we merge from a feature branch, this build is going to be executed. And we will see that in just a second, but this option in here is the one that is important, to build on every push. We may want to automatically increment the version code. I am going to be selecting this one, and it can even use a couple of formats, either a timestamp or a build ID. I will leave this as build ID. So for example, since we have built 0 times, the next one is going to be 1. These will be incremented automatically. Again, we're not yet going to be seeing environment variables. This is going to be a very easy setup. We are not going to be signing builds. This is something that you may only want to do for the master branch that will have to be deployed over to devices. Test is something that we will see in the next section. Distribute is something that we will see in the last section when we enable continuous delivery. I will enable this build status batch, and I'm actually going to copy the markdown of this build status. I will show you why in just a second. What I want to do is just click on save. I don't want to build right now. I have just saved everything. So far, my dev branch is not building. All it did is save that configuration. But remember that we have already set some continuous integration. Whenever there is a push to dev, the continuous integration process will begin. So let's take a look at that. I am going to navigate back to GitHub. And on feature 1, I'm actually going to add a README file. Make sure, by the way, that you are on feature 1 branch. And I am going to add a README file. And in the README file, right below this default block of code, I am going to paste the markdown that I've just copied from App Center when I set that advanced option down below, this build status batch. Because that status batch is referring to something that can be displayed in here. If I check the preview, I am going to see this small badge that is going to be pointing to the status of the build of the dev branch. Currently, of course, it says it has never built, but this badge is going to be very helpful for anyone navigating here to this repository so they can check the status of your build. So with this small change, I am simply going to commit this new file in the feature branch. And so my feature branch now contains 2 commits that are not contained inside of the dev branch. I want to merge those 2 commits into dev. So what I will do, of course, is create a new pull request. I will create a new pull request directly from here. I am going to set the dev to be the base and feature 1 to be the one that I'm comparing, and create the pull request, just like this. For now, I am just going to merge this pull request and confirm the merge into dev. Notice what is going to happen as soon as this pull request was confirmed and feature 1 was merged into dev. I'm going to navigate back to branches and the continuous integration process started. The dev branch is now building. We can select this one to see that indeed there is a build happening right now. It is currently about to be executed, but this right here is continuous integration. As soon as there is a push, which is what we said when we configured this build, the build starts. Eventually, this will trigger continuous quality with tests and continuous delivery with distribute, but for now, we have this initial setting with a continuous integration of the dev branch now working here in App Center. In the next lecture, we're going to continue to work with some settings in here. We're going to also connect our iOS application, and we're going to explore what else we can do with this integration directly between GitHub and the branches that we have there and App Center.